Potter, ceramic artist from Oxfordshire. I'm speaking to you from my studio. We're now 3 months into lockdown. So I'm interviewing myself using the phone. So we'll see how it goes. I'm here to talk about the Making Histories exhibition that was due to open at the Leamington Art Gallery Museum, I think the 20th of March. So it had all been set up, but it's been put on hold. I think they're hoping to open it now in September. Excuse me. So Making Histories was, this is the catalogue, was put together by Lily Crowther, and it involves 7 artists, potters from the West Midlands. And the idea was to come and look at the collection at the museum, and to pick out things that we liked, or that interested us, and to make new work that led from the existing collection. So there's a great catalogue, and also if you go to the website, you can do an online tour, so you can see all the different artists, see their different work, and see the different things they put together. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my work. I've got a few questions that I'm going to answer. I'm going to put that down. Originally I was going to do more of a demonstration of different techniques, but I managed to hurt my hand or my wrist. So I haven't really been making a lot recently. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to answer some questions, and hopefully not ramble on too much. So initially I was contacted by Lily, I think 2019, and I made 3 visits to the museum to look at their collection. And what drew me was what attracted me was their collection of slipware, which is lucky because I make slipware, so it wasn't a total surprise. But they've got some fantastic work there in the archives, particularly work from the sort of 16th, 17th century from Staffordshire, maybe some from North Wales, of old slipware, mainly functional work, so bowls and cups and strange kind of jugs, all very simple, utilitarian, decorated in a very sort of almost casual way. And that's what I like anyway. So getting the chance to handle that kind of work it seemed obvious where I was going to go, or that was going to be my starting point. I should just say a little word about slip. So slip is liquid clay, and it's a sort of decorative technique that's been around since clay was around, really. I've got some here. So this is a white slip. So it's basically liquid clay. So my work is red clay with a white or black slip on, and then I'll add let me show you. So here's a piece of mine. So that's a red clay, and I pour the liquid white clay over the top, and then I make these marks. And this is very similar to the work that's in the archive in the museum. So the techniques are very similar. So I use these things, which are called slip trailers, and this is how I make my mark. Hopefully you can see this. So I'd make those marks like that. So it's a very kind of free and spontaneous, maybe, and relaxed way of working. I've got this tool here. It might not work, but this is a bit more like the tools they would have used for applying slip. It would be more of a pouring action, and I think they would have been made from like horn or something. So I'm just going to try and do a little more. Oh, blimey! Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit too runny, but you get the idea. So it's about building up layers of liquid clay, really, and then usually with a clear glaze on the top. Okay, I think that's okay. So I've been making slipware for quite a long time. So as soon as I get a chance to handle the old slipware, it's exciting for me. So I think what I do is I'll answer a few questions and might give you a little bit of insight into my making process. I'll try not to ramble too much. So I've got a few questions here. The first one is, can you talk us through your making process? Is there any preparatory work, drawing and thinking, etc., or do you just plunge straight in? So normally when I'm working with my work, it's a long flow, it's a continuation, so all the pieces follow on from each other, so I don't do a lot of drawing or even thinking. I'm generally working in a kind of stream of things. So for example, I make this plate. That's something I make these plates quite a lot, so I make a series of these, and then when I come back to make more, they'll be informed by the ones I'd made before, so it's just like a line of work, and it gradually changes. But for this project, I visited the museum maybe 3 times. I think I did a lot of sketches, took a lot of photos. So even though it was the type of work that I usually do, the shapes were different from the shapes I make. So I wanted to try and tune in to the shapes of these strange kind of jugs and bowls, and maybe not strange, but different for me. And I think by drawing, it's a way of getting the mind going. So I made a lot of drawings, just trying to tune into these shapes. And then, what's the rest of the question? Do I plunge straight in? So, but I also like to plunge straight in. So I made, after I'd done my drawings, I think there's time to get going. So, and there's no sort of substitute for three-dimensional work. So I made a whole series in one day, maybe 30 pieces that were based on almost copying the drawings that I'd made, but made them in a very relaxed and sort of not spontaneous, but I tried to get a bit of life into them, but also I was thinking of them more as a beginning rather than an end. So I was fairly relaxed about what I was making, just trying these different shapes. So I've only got a few, most of them are in the museum, but there's one that's based on I think they're called costrels. Maybe they were used for wine or water. And I made these kind of strange versions of all these different shapes. And then I put those aside, and the idea was that they were then going to be a starting point for a new direction. I then had been looking at they make these. There's some fantastic bowls and plates there, and they're made by decorating a flat slab of clay using my trailers, and then when that had gone slightly hard, you kind of flop it over a mould, and the idea being that it's wet enough to make into the mould, but not so wet that it smudges all the decoration. And there's various techniques for doing that, which I didn't bother to look at, which was a bit dark, because it meant I made quite a lot of cracked ones, and but I also quite like not doing too much research, because it's sort of more interesting to try and figure it out yourself. So I made a lot of these bowls, maybe 20 or so, and out of that I got maybe 4 or 5 that I liked. And then my next step, moving on from these shapes, was to try and combine them with the work I'd been making myself. Not combine them, but to use that as try and merge the two together. So this is the sort of thing I've been making maybe a bit like this, which are, and this is a jug shape. So it was a kind of a kind of mutation of these jugs. So they're becoming more abstract. And I was hoping to combine the ways of working. But I found that that didn't go anywhere. I made some quite big versions. This isn't one, but I just bring this up. But they were about this size. But they weren't quite working. And in the meantime, I glazed and fired all my initial run of 30 or so, and they came out really well. So in the end, I ended up using that group as the group I've got in the museum, just because they worked, and the other things didn't work. So even though I tried to push it in different directions, it was my initial response that seemed to be the best. That's quite rambling. Okay, another question. Your work for the exhibition was inspired by everyday useful objects, but lots of the things you make defy function. How do you approach the idea of usefulness? That's quite a tricky question. I think I grew up, I'm from a family of potters. So my dad's a potter, and my uncles and grandparents and great-grandparents, and I trained as a functional potter, making mugs and jugs and bowls, but I think I was never that good at it, and it was never it wasn't what excited me really. So over time, my work has moved away from function. So now it maybe isn't my first consideration. So when I'm looking at, if I'm looking at the work in the museum, I'm not thinking so much about making bowls that you can use or jugs that will pour. I'm more interested in the shapes and the feel of them, I think. It's a very vague answer. But the feel of things is what I'm interested in. I got another question. Can you tell us about some of the new shapes you've made for the exhibition, such as the jugs with broken handles and the pots with 3 feet? What was it that appealed to you about those particular features on the older objects? I think one thing was that the idea of just almost like distressing the work hadn't really occurred to me, but it was also something that I've been doing with my own work, in that I've been adding and taking away and distorting, and so this object, for example, may have had a handle on it. It may have had more of a conventional shape, but as I worked on it, I would be adding bits, taking away bits, and squashing bits, and again, maybe this is a good example. It's kind of based on a cup, but it's not really a cup. But it would have had a handle, and then I broke the handle off, or I squashed this bit, or turned it upside down, and that's really how I'm working at the moment with these kinds of pieces. That there's a lot of adjustment. So the work I made for the museum, I sort of naturally adjusted it as I went, breaking bits off and squashing it, and not with an idea of making it look old or anything, but as I did that, it started to look like something you might have dug up out of your garden, or if you did, if you discover it by the side of the river, or in some mud, and there'll be bits broken, or a little bit of the handle's chipped off, or one of the legs has gone. And I really liked that about them. But I also liked the fact that it wasn't my intention to really make them look broken and battered. But as that emerged, I was really pleased with the batteredness. I think that's probably all I've got to say about it. But I hope everybody gets a chance to get to see the exhibition when it finally opens. And thank you for your time. Bye.